Join the Our Game Supporters Club at Patreon for €5 per month to get audio podcasts of the Hurling and Football Show and much more exclusive material. Like we've already talked now about Liam Sheedy and Liam Cahill and so on. Let's look at the managerial merry-go-round in a broader context. Now, Cork, we're assuming, and you just never know, but look, this is the state of play in terms of hurling managers as we see it right now. Cork, they've Kieran Kingston, and would imagine he's going to stay on. Now, the situation with Brian Lohan is there was a Cork or a Clare Executive County Board meeting last night, and the talk is that they were supposed to talk about Brian Lohan's future and extending his deal. He wants to stay on. Tony Kelly has talked about how he should stay on. But as things stand, there's a bit of a question mark there. Tipperary, obviously that post is available at the moment. Waterford with Liam Cahill, we've put a bit of a question mark there, which people will understand. Limerick, John Kiely. Now, you just never know. If they do the first ever back-to-back All-Irelands and win 3 and 4 years, maybe Kiely will step away. Who knows? But as things stand, he's there, and there's absolutely no one to question that position.
Can I just say something quickly on that, Shane? I think it's like Limerick are absolutely flying in hurling at the moment, but I genuinely think that it's only a matter of time over the next 4 to 5 years that Paul Kinnerk gets involved in senior football coaching, inter-county football. It's his first love. I've chatted to him about it before. He didn't knock it back. I know he's heavily involved in the Limerick Football Academy. Limerick, who were obviously beaten in the Munster minor final last week. So, like, you don't know how things are going to move there in a couple of years. But Kiely is probably the one certainty at the moment. But again, you just don't know. It doesn't look like a guy that's tired. He looks like he's loving it as much as he ever loved it. But you don't know, again, like, how much more is in his head? Does he think he has more? Does he think he actually has more to achieve if they win the first back-to-back in history? You don't know, but things will change over the next couple of years. And I would be really interested to see Kinnerk and what he would do in inter-county football. I think it'd be fascinating. And maybe it would be Limerick, or maybe another county would take him in, like Clare took him in the hurling, and look at what he did for them.
Very, very interesting to keep an eye on that and get your comments in on it. Dublin, look, you insisted on a question mark here. I think Matty Kenny is going to remain in that job. But the thing that would make me question it is if the Galway situation, you can see there the Galway crest there in towards the middle with a question mark around it. Shane O'Neill has done 2 years. Remains to be seen what happens there, because it probably hasn't gone the way he would like it to go. Joe Canning is retired. Feels like there's going to be a little bit of moving and shifting there, certainly with players, but who knows with the manager. So maybe that's the reason that I would accept a question mark around Matty Kenny with Dublin, because I think in a broader sense, not everything has gone the way he would want, but the COVID situation ruined their season this year when it looked like they were going well. They beat Galway for the second time in 3 seasons. Shane O'Brien has left Westmeath, so that post is available at the moment. You wanted a question mark around Brian Cody too. We know that Wexford have a managerial vacancy, and Cheddar Plunkett, he's over Laois as things stand. But your thoughts on some of those question marks around the Leinster teams?
Well, there has to be a question mark over Brian Cody, just because there has been questions over the last couple of winters. So I think there does have to be a question mark there. And I have said it, I do think if he's going to leave, that now is the perfect time to leave. I know he'd love to probably go out on top, or maybe he never wants to go out at all. I don't know, but I just think now is a good time would be a good time for him to go. And I'd say probably Henry Shefflin is with Thomastown. I believe they're absolutely flying in league games there, and they're playing a lot of senior clubs in practice games, and they're absolutely flying as well. The likelihood of, if Henry did come in as Kilkenny manager, regardless if it's this winter or the winter after or whenever, it would be his brother Tommy will be involved, and Richie O'Neill would be involved as a coach as well. They already have that in place. Like I'm saying about Cahill potentially having a team in place, that's their team, and it's kind of ready to go. Whether when it'll be sprung into action, it'll be interesting to see. But I wouldn't be shocked if there was movement in Kilkenny in the next month or 6 weeks.
Yeah. So Fred91, I think this Limerick team have only 2 years left. Don't worry, lads. Very interesting comment to come in there. Jose Mourinho on a shock move to Waterford. Pretty sure instead of the flowing forward movement interplay, I think he plays something a little bit more dire. He loves talking about playing with a low block. They might just flood the defence with defenders. So I don't know if that would be the right move.
The Limerick one is interesting though, Shane. Like they're going grand at underage, but it's generally the same personnel that's been used the whole time. And touch wood for them, they've been lucky. They've been lucky with injuries. Really, they haven't really lost anybody. And obviously, we'll probably talk about it in a bit. Peter Casey's back for the final, which is a huge boost as well. And I think probably changes both yours and my viewing of the game. The fact that he's back, and we'll probably chat more about that on Thursday. But Limerick are a good age profile at the moment. In a couple of years, a lot of those guys will be leaning a lot closer towards 30. So I don't necessarily disagree with that viewer, and I think they'll be really keen on obviously getting over the line Sunday and making hay while they can, because they're not always going to have that golden generation.
Yeah, let's talk about the situation. Well, actually, sorry, just before we do, just to finish up on the hurling manager and the merry-go-round there. Sorry, I'll just get that comment off the screen so that I can look at it a little bit more clearly. You're looking at the moment, you'd be fairly certain of only 3 of these 11 teams having the same manager next year. That really does lead to quite I wouldn't say unstable situation, but like it leaves things very, very open going into next season if that's the way it plays out.
Yeah, no, it does. And even Antrim have obviously dropped back to the Joe McDonough. There's another team that has a question mark over them now, probably based on Liam Sheedy's departure as well. So I don't think there's ever been as much kind of like a state of flux amongst the managerial scene. And like, we're building up to an All-Ireland final, and Brendan Matter retires last week. Liam Sheedy, it was a retirement statement today, which I thought was interesting as well. Not a departure statement, a retirement statement. So he's obviously that's definitely that. There'll be no third coming by the looks of things, even though it's probably a never say never job as well. But there's never been as much doubt over what's going to happen in so many counties.
Yeah, Michael Mulcair, Henry Shefffield to Dublin. William Phelan, 33. The legendary Michael Ryan of Ballymacarbery to come back and end the famine in Waterford. He has unfinished business. I think people will remember that he was the manager after Davy Fitz did some good work there, went on and did more work with Westmeath. And even though he'd left 2 or 3 years beforehand, there'd been a couple of managers. When they played that Joe McDonough final, his name was mentioned by the captain. Let me just double check so that I have the right lad who was.
That's right. He was talked about. Like, he's been gone 2 or 3 years. He actually helped out with video analysis, or was the eye in the sky last year or the year before as well, even though he's not involved in the management team.
Yeah, I just wanted to check it was Cormac Boyle who was captain. There was an interview with Henry Shefflin a while back where he kind of half said he couldn't manage anyone who was a rival of his club. I think it might be the same about County. Do you believe that? I mean, I was talking to Nicky Brennan, former GA president, recently, and like some of these names that are swirling around and being mentioned for Wexford, he doesn't necessarily think that means that they wouldn't be welcomed back as Kilkenny manager or would do their chances any harm whatsoever. And even more so now, like if Waterford opens up, being in a different province, it's so proximate to Kilkenny for plenty of the former Kilkenny names who played for the county and have a good managerial CV, that one would probably be quite appetizing to a few of them.
Yeah, potentially, yeah. I listened to that same interview with Henry. He said the reason he took over Thomastown is because they're an intermediate club and he won't be coming up against Ballyhale. If they were to win the Kilkenny Intermediate Championship, I'd imagine he would step down. That was what I gathered from it. And there didn't seem to be any interest in managing anybody other than Kilkenny, even though he didn't say he necessarily wanted to manage Kilkenny. And no one has said that they want to manage Kilkenny at the moment, because it's like Mickey Hart up in Tyrone. You didn't hear Peter Canavan or Brian Dewar or any of these guys coming out saying it. Just they would view it as a disrespect to Brian Cody. But I like, it's like what Liam Cahill has done. It's like learning as much as you possibly can in another county, trying to bring them on, trying to find out what intercounty management is all about to bring it back to your own county eventually.
Join the Our Game Supporters Club at Patreon for €5 per month to get audio podcasts of the Hurling and Football Show and much more exclusive material.